It's a cheat code, right? Conceptually, anything in life that's worth having, in the beginning, it's just gonna suck to do it. Hard now, easy later. I was a founder. It was a time in my life where I made the least amount of money, but I was probably the happiest. So whenever I find myself stressing out about something, I ask myself, like, what can I do to change it? Founders of color are underfunded. It does you no good to start playing the game, and then while you're playing the game, you're complaining about the rules that you knew were already rigged. You show up to the game, and you just say, okay, I know the rules are not set up for me to win, but I'm going to win despite. I'm going to try to build some allies along the way.
True or false, raising money is easier if you're a white guy in a hoodie.
I would say true. It's just based on the data.
Kofi, true or false? Ivy League degrees are useless in startups.
True. I think the reason is
Welcome to the Tiger Sisters podcast, where we talk about money, power, and love. I'm Cherie.
I'm Jean.
I'm Kofi.
And
we're
the
Tiger
Sisters.
Sisters.
Hey guys, quick break to let you know that we now have merch on sistersmatcha.com. We have sweatshirts and t-shirts that we designed ourselves. Go check it out. And please rate us 5 stars on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. These ratings are so important for the distribution and survival of Tiger Sisters podcast. Thank you for your support.
Kofi is a 2-time founder, a deeply analytical thinker, and someone who has actually built an entire framework and system to track his life for good days and bad days. He's going to tell us all about that later on.
Hi, Kofi.
Hi.
Could you please introduce yourself in your own words to our audience?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Kofi Ampadu. I'm a partner at Andreessen Horowitz, where I have the pleasure of leading the Talent Times Opportunity Initiative. It is a program where we focus on finding founders who have the talent and drive to build big businesses. I'm excited to be here.
Thanks for being here.
Wait, vibe check first. You have good days, bad days. Is this a good day? Is this a good day to film?
Actually, it's a great day because I'm here with you guys.
Great
Okay.
day. Oh,
Good. I'm so
great.
relieved to hear that because I didn't want to mess up your streak or...
Yeah. Okay. It's a green day for
Yeah.
us.
Kofi, on our podcast, we talk a lot about intersectionality. So you're Ghanaian American, you're an immigrant, and also a person of color.
Mhm.
You've had to navigate many rooms where people don't look like you. In the startup world, in the VC world, was there a turning point where you decided, I'm going to play this game differently?
I think I actually use my different hyphens as an advantage. I think oftentimes as a person of color, when you're in the room, you probably work the hardest to be in that room, right? So you work the hardest to be in that room. And I also think about it as a chance to change minds, where it's what stereotype can I debunk when I'm in that room? And I think for me, it's understanding, and I always tell founders this, it's you decide to play a game.
Yeah.
You know the rules of the game. Unfortunately, sometimes the rules of the games are a bit rigged against you, but you knew that going in, right? I don't think there's any surprise that, specifically speaking about founders, I don't think there's any surprise that, okay, founders of color are underfunded, right? So I think it does you no good to start playing the game, and then while you're playing the game, you're complaining about the rules that you knew were already rigged, right? So I think you show up to the game and you just say, okay, I know the rules are not set up for me to win, but I'm going to win despite. And as I'm going to try to build some allies along the way, right? And so for me, it's always about understanding the game that I'm trying to play, and then playing within the rules, but trying to change the rules along the way, right? Because it's really hard to, I think, decide you want to play a game, and then your rookie year, you're asking the commission of the league to change the rules. It's like, who are you? Like, you haven't done anything. So I think as you make progress, you then start using your bully pulpit to make change.
I'm going to win despite.
Exactly.
Wow. That's very powerful.
And I feel like now you're in that position now where you have the bully pulpit and you're making change for everyone else who's playing the game.
Yeah, that's what we're trying to do. I think it's really important to highlight the wins. When I think about founders of color, one of the things I notice is oftentimes there's this unfair weight on founders where I know it's a high failure rate environment, right?
Mhm.
I know a large number of companies are not going to make it to the other side. But as a founder, it's sort of you started to play the game. You start realizing, okay, the idea that I'm bringing to market, maybe it's not working. I've done several pivots, but you're so resilient and you don't want to give up because you feel like if you give up, you're stopping maybe the next Black founder, maybe
Yeah.
the next female founder
Yeah.
from being funded.
Mhm.
And I talk to founders, and that's not necessarily your responsibility. I think your responsibility as a founder is to just do everything you said you were going to do. There's
Mhm.
so many founders that say, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, and they actually don't do X, Y, and Z. They start doing A, B, C, right? And what happens is you start to lose trust. But if, as a founder, you decide you did everything that you set out to do and it didn't work out, it didn't work out. I think investors are astute enough to know that not every company is going to work out,
Mhm.
right? So I don't think founders need to put that weight on themselves. And that's one of the conversations that I constantly have with founders to say, okay, resilience is a great thing, but it's also a double-edged sword
Yes.
where you can be too resilient and then start compounding your opportunity cost.
Yeah. I feel like that's almost like a really good framework to go into a lot of different situations where the two things you said were like, one, recognize the game for what it is, like
Mhm.
understand the rules and the bounds, and like the same rules don't necessarily apply to you. And then also, you're kind of saying just like get that understanding in your head and then get it out of the way.
Mhm.
Like, don't be thinking about it all the time for everything that you do, but just like know that going in,
Yep.
and then you can act within the rules that are applied to you.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah. It's a
Yeah.
distraction, right? If you,
Yeah.
if you,
You're thinking about it all
yeah,
the
it's like,
time.
it's unfair. It's unfair. It's like,
Yeah.
that's a fact. It's unfair, right?
Mhm.
You're playing a game. How can you eventually make it fair for yourself?
It resonates so deeply. I think more than you know, it resonates really deeply with me and also the ethos of our podcast.
Mhm.
Because one of the goals of Tiger Sisters podcast is to really break open like traditionally gate-kept institutions, like tech and VC, and also like Stanford and Harvard, where like
Mhm.
if you don't know someone who knows someone who knows someone, like how the heck are you supposed to figure out the game
Mhm.
of everything, of like applications and recommendations, and then when you're trying to for interviews, it's really difficult on the outside. And so I think creating more opportunities for people, yeah, that's a really powerful thing.
Yeah.
So Kofi, one question that we like to ask our guests is for a piece of advice that they'd give their younger self. So I'm about to enter my 30s, Jean's in her mid 30s. So when you're looking back to your 29-year-old self, what would you tell him?
Yeah. So I journal a lot.
Mm.
And I was actually talking to a friend, and they were just like, man, you're doing everything you said you were going to do. And I was like, what are you talking about? And they sent me a doc that I wrote in 2012. I sent them a VC plan, and the plan was very, very close to what I'm doing now.
A VC as in like the startup of you?
Yeah, so it's like,
Like
well,
you.
it's I sent them a plan around a fund that I was going to start, and it was very, very close to what it's like 85% overlap to what I'm doing. And I kind of thought to myself, I'm like, what happened along the way? Like it felt like it took me too long to start doing this thing, right? Because I took different paths. Like I took a job
Mm.
as a consultant,
Mhm.
right? So my advice, like my younger self, would be like do the thing right now, right? There's no perfect. I think I was looking for like the perfect time to do something, and often it's so easy to convince yourself or tell yourself a story, right? Where it's I'm gonna do this and then I'm do that and then I'm gonna come back and do this thing, as opposed to what's the thing you want to do now? Like why don't you just like do it? So like reading back, like looking at that plan, and then like flipping back through my journal and seeing how this is a thing I wanted to do, but I took these like roundabout turns to get there. I would just say, just try to do the thing now. And I think you're always going to be rewarded for failure, right? Like if you put your best foot forward, like people are going to see you're trying, right? And you may get a shot like a lot sooner.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I have this one professor who says the two most dangerous words are not now.
Mhm.
So if people keep saying not now,
Yeah.
they keep pushing it later and later, and it becomes not ever.
Yeah.
I think to give yourself some credit, you're doing what you said you would do.
That's crazy. Yeah, that's
No, it was
wild.
it was like bunkers. I was
That's
just like,
wild.
I was just like, wait, what? And it made me,
You
what it was, too?
manifested.
Yeah, and it made me happy because there was a time where, because I went from being a founder and now I'm a VC, and I'm like, did I just like leave the founder dream too early and move over to the other side of the table? Did I just become like an investor because it's like the new hip thing that everyone wants to do? So it did make me feel good about my life decisions. I was like, oh, okay, this was the plan all along.
You're like, deep down, I wanted this
Yeah.
more than a decade ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good friend that you had a friend that you were so close with that you sent them like your life plan.
Yeah, it's my best friend. We share, like I tell him everything. So
I love that.
well, almost everything.
Okay, Kofi, back to your founder days now. So not the like LinkedIn version, but like the real version. So let's start with an open question. Tell us, where did your founder journey first begin?
Founder journey first began when I realized I didn't really like my job. I think
Classic.
And then like looking back, I felt like I was always a founder. During my time as a strategy consultant, I just didn't enjoy what I was doing. And a friend threw me a lifeline. He said, I have this idea to start a beverage company, and I want you to join me as the co-founder CEO.
Yeah.
That was the only way I was leaving my job. I needed to be CEO. Right? No, but I was like, man, this is the lifeline I needed. And it just, the ball just started rolling. And then in retrospect, sort of like looking back, I felt like I've always been a founder. I remember, and I'm going to date myself a bit, but when I was in high school, I had a bunch of different side hustles, right? I would burn CDs and sell them to classmates. So I was making mixtapes. And then one of my side hustles was we would actually, my senior year of high school, you can go off campus to go get lunch. I would take food orders from underclassmen, and I would just charge them a delivery fee. But
DoorDash who?
right? So looking back, I actually
invented DoorDash.
I actually think I came up with DoorDash. Just kidding, but it's just sort of having that in the back of my mind of, hey, I want to do something that is not restricted to I'm doing a 9 to 5, and that's what entrepreneurship really gave me. So my first company was H2 Melon. We started a beverage company that was a health and wellness beverage company. So this is, think back in the day where you can sell a 12-ounce bottle of juice for $10 and no one would bat an eye. And it just got me in the game, and I don't want to leave the game. Like I love it. I love being around entrepreneurs. It inspires me to want to do more.
Yeah. It sounds like you really had that entrepreneurial spirit from a very young age. And you've mentioned previously that your family or your dad ran a mom and pop shop. Did you feel like that entrepreneurial spirit or growing up around that influenced you?
Might have, right? So I think when I think back to my dad being an entrepreneur, I felt like he was an entrepreneur because he needed to be. Like he wasn't classically well educated, right? And when he moved to the States, he was a cab driver. Hated being a cab driver and wanted to do something else. And that something else was, I'm going to start a small mom and pop shop. And he's still doing it now, right? And it's been his path out. And sort of like looking back on it, he's happy. I remember having a conversation with him a few months ago where he's about to be 70 next year and he's still working. But I thought he was working to live, right? And so I was just like, when are you going to retire? He's like, what are you talking about? I love what I'm doing. And I was like, can you tell me about a typical day? And when he described his day, I was like, oh, holy shit, he's retired.
Yeah.
Like he's just sort of doing something he loves and it's just motivating him and keeping him going.
That's the dream.
Yeah,
that's the
what I
role,
want.
my role model.
Yeah.
I have these professors at Stanford who are like in their 70s, well into their 70s, late 70s, and they're still teaching. And I'm like, that's what I aspire to do, to find something that drives me so much that I can continue working because I love it and because I want to.
Yeah, like he loves it.
Yeah.
And it's so inspiring to see where it's just like, finding something that you can do for the rest of your life. I think it's the mission that we're all on. And I'm happy he found his.
Do you feel like you found that?
I think so. So for me, I love being around founders. I love being around people who constantly have ideas. No 2 days are the same
Yeah.
for us, and I think that's what inspires me. I have a quest to learn, so whenever it's a cheat code, right?
Mhm.
So I think as an investor, you are meeting with a founder, even if it's a founder you're not going to invest in, you're learning about something completely new, and oftentimes you're meeting with somebody that's dealing with it on an everyday basis. So you're just accelerating your learning curve. And I love that. And then when my founders come to us with issues that they're having, we get to roll our sleeves up and like work with them on trying to figure out those issues.
It's like you get to have a different job day to day,
Yeah.
week to week.
Yeah. And I don't have the
Year to
stress
year.
of being a founder.
Wait a minute. This is sounding pretty good.
No, it's good stress, right? So
Yeah.
it's when I was a founder, it was a time in my life where I made the least amount of money,
Yeah.
but I was probably the happiest.
Mhm.
And the reason I was the happiest is whenever an issue came up, I felt like I was in control of either solving that issue. Oftentimes, I think when you are an employee,
Mhm.
when an issue comes up, you may not completely be the one who can solve it, right? But as a founder, you have complete agency. You can either hire somebody to help you solve it, you can go learn a thing to solve the thing, right? So there's so many things that I think being a founder, the flexibility that it gives you that I love. And I think for me, the role that I have with TXO, when I think back to it, so TXO started in 2020. I joined the firm in 2021. TXO was still being built from a foundational standpoint. And when I got in there, I was able to help build the foundation. So I felt like I still got to flex some entrepreneurial muscles, right? And I think that's what keeps me excited about what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis. And we're constantly always trying to figure out, like, what can we do next? And we consider ourselves a startup within the firm.
Yeah.
Because we're constantly trying to figure out, like, what can we do next to ensure that we're creating value for our founders?
Yeah. I feel like this is a very revealing answer because it's so clear that you are a very high agency person. Like that's how I would describe you. I feel like having known you for not that long, that's like probably one of your most defining characteristics.
I would agree. No, like, in all seriousness, it's all about, like, what can I do to change something?
Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
And I think it's been really helpful for my mental health,
Mhm.
where there's so many things in the world that you can stress out about. And so whenever I find myself like stressing out about something, like I don't like the feeling of being unhappy and
Yeah.
being stressed.
Yeah.
So whenever I find myself stressing out about something, I ask myself that one foundational question, right? It's like, okay, what am I doing to change it? Like, what can I do to change it? And if you drill down and you can't do anything to change it, like oftentimes it's like, all right, so don't stress out about it. Because
So
if you're
let
you're
go of it,
literally like
right?
you-
Yeah.
you're impacting your mental health for something that you can't make any change to, right?
Mm.
Oftentimes there is something we can do to change it, right? It may feel small and minute, but I think a lot of actions start from something that is small and minute.
Mm-hmm. I think it's also really powerful to be surrounded by people who adopt a similar mindset, like I am the captain of my ship mindset. Everything gets harder because you make a change. In the short term, things get harder, but then in the long term, things usually, if you make the right decision, like get better. But
Yeah.
it's fun being around those people.
Yeah, it's like folks who understand you have to optimize for the long term. When you want lasting change, it's in the beginning, it's not going to be fun, right? It's like hard now. I think it's just like hard now, easy later, right?
Mm.
So if anything, I think conceptually anything in life that's worth having, in the beginning, it's just gonna suck to do it, right? Like, so if you want to get in better physical shape, in the beginning, you go to the gym, you're not gonna see results. It's gonna suck if you need to wake up early. You're not gonna be used to doing that, but once you start seeing results, when you start getting in better shape, it's gonna be easier for you to say, "I'm gonna wake up earlier." So I think it's always kind of thinking about it from a standpoint of like, what do I need to do now to optimize for the long term?
Mm-hmm.
So while you were bootstrapping, you told us that you moved in with your sister.
We'd like to go there because we live together.
Yeah, so we're bootstrapping.
Okay.
And we live together.
Okay.
Work and
She
live
is my
together.
sister. So you kind of see where
Yeah,
I'm going
yeah.
here. I mean, was that sustainable? Did you have to like put your pride aside, or was it just really easy? Like, how did that feel?
Yeah, I had to put my pride aside. So just to kind of paint the picture, I had the apartment in Manhattan that
Mhm.
we all pre-gamed at when we were gonna go out,
Oh,
right? So it was
I know.
I had the balcony, I
Yeah.
had like all like the amenities,
Floor to
right?
ceiling,
Yeah.
windows.
I had
Okay.
that, and
I know where we
think-
started.
So I think for me, it was also me telling myself I'm all in. Like if this is a thing you say you care about,
Yeah.
the thing you say you want to grow, what are you willing to give up for it? For me, it was like, it's pride, right?
Mhm.
Like, hey, I'm moving back in I would have moved in with my parents if they lived closer, right? Like, and being very serious, because I think it was my way of saying I'm all in.
Yes.
Mhm.
And I think being all in means like, how do you reduce your burn,
Mhm.
right? And I think as a founder, I often kind of think through, if you're a founder and you raise money and you hire a team, you should probably pay yourself the least. You should pay yourself enough to live,
Mm.
right? But you shouldn't pay yourself enough to save up money for vacation, because your payoff is going to be at the end of the journey.
Mhm.
And so went all in, and then I'm so fortunate that I have a supportive family. My sister was like, sure, like move in. And I think for her too, it was like free childcare. Because my niece was like maybe 2 or 3 at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, it was a great time for me. I got a chance to get closer to my sister,
Yeah.
my brother-in-law, and they actually also used my presence as a carrot for my niece. So I literally lived in the basement. I lived in a basement, and if my niece was acting up, they were like, "You can't go hang out with Uncle Kofi unless you eat your vegetables or you do this," right? So it was like, they liked having me in their space. I also made sure to contribute when I was there, right? So it was, I may not be paying rent, but okay, how can I maybe buy groceries,
Mhm.
do this and that? And then during the day, I wasn't there. I was at my co-working space. So all of that kind of like worked out. But I think I made that decision just because I needed to show myself that I was all in. It's really hard to kind of hold two truths, right? I can't be the guy who has a nice Manhattan apartment that friends come to pregame at.
Yeah.
And then I'm talking about how it's really hard to build this company because I need money.
Mm-hmm.
When I can literally take money out of that apartment by not paying rent,
Yep.
and then using it to build the company.
It's walking the walk.
Yeah.
And it's about sacrifice.
And
What
it's
are you willing to do?
Yeah, it's a good story to tell when you're pitching a VC, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
like, how all in are you? And you say, I had to move in with my sister. I live in the basement now.
You're like, my window is this
Exactly.
big.
Limited sunlight. Yeah. It's very heartwarming to hear about your support system and your relationship with your family and your sister. I want to turn the conversation to your eternal co-founder, your wife, who you've mentioned before is a really important support system and has gone through all of it with you from the beginning.
Yeah, I think I'm so lucky. It's a cheat code. Because even if you have a co-founder, it's sometimes you need to complain about your co-founder, right? And it's nice to have an outlet.
Wait, what? Never.
Hasn't happened yet.
You need to have an outlet, right?
Yeah.
And like for me, I was super, super fortunate where she's a journalist, has interest in photography. So she was taking product pictures for us.
Wow.
She would be helping us with like our social media post, right?
Yeah.
So I felt like she was also all in. I think it's important to surround yourself with people who don't second guess the decisions you make, because they see you as a whole human who can make adult decisions, and then they will support you. And obviously, if you're going to fall, they'll be there to help like pick you back up. And I've been very fortunate to have that, where the peaks and valleys of the entrepreneurial journey has been something that I've gone through with her. And she is someone I can constantly talk to about what I'm doing. I think what also makes our relationship, I think, really cool is she is in a profession that has like very little to no overlap with what I'm doing, right? Like
Mm.
she's a documentarian, a journalist, a photographer,
And you like that?
and yeah, it's perfect, right? It's
Mm.
and I think the reason I think it's perfect is she also gives me a different perspective, right? Because I think oftentimes we can be so homogenous in our networks where it's an echo chamber.
Mm.
Like she gives me fresh perspectives, right? When I'm talking about something that I've seen, she may ask that question of like, I can be talking about a company that I think is interesting, and she gives me like the regular, quote unquote, like regular person's point of view, right? Because
Yeah.
I think sometimes we're so surrounded by technology or immersed with technology, we don't understand like folks who may not be living technology
Mm.
24/7,
Yeah,
and
she's
it
like,
gives me that perspective.
why do you need AI for that?
Exactly.
Basically.
Right? And it's
Like, what
it's
do you mean?
exactly. She's not
Yeah.
she's not a techno optimist, which is
Mm.
good
Mhm.
because it gives me, we have healthy debates.
Yeah.
So we don't argue, we debate. So we have a lot of like healthy debates,
Yeah.
right? Where we actually even started doing this thing where we do brown bag lunches where
You and your
would
wife?
yeah, so you would research, it's like a topic that she cares about, she'll
Yeah.
research it and then pitch it to me, and I'll like research something and I'll pitch it to her. So it's like me telling her it could be about like AI and the benefits I think AI is going to have in society, right? Where I think that the means, like the ends justifies the means sort of like presentation, and then she'll do the same, and I get to learn and have like different perspectives because I'm immersed and surrounded by technology all day, and just having somebody who is maybe a little suspect of technology, right, is helpful and keeps me grounded in how I look at technology and how I look at what the future is going could potentially look like.
Mm-hmm.
And so this could be any topic?
Any topic. So I like the last one I did was, it wasn't even about technology. It was, I just wanted to look at francophone countries in Africa and why their currency was pegged to the French system,
Mm.
right? It's just like, okay, why is this thing? So it's like whenever we are like, why is this thing? It's like, oh, why don't you research it and tell me? You know,
Huh.
yeah.
And then is her role to like ask you questions?
Ask me questions, and then when she's also interested in something, she'll research it, and then I will ask questions about it. So it's like our way of like teaching each other stuff.
Wow.
Wow, I've never heard of
We're-
something like this.
We're kind of dorky.
Yeah,
That's so cool.
She's like, yeah.
we have that
I love
at
it.
work. Wait, I would call that a brown bag lunch in a professional setting,
Yeah.
or like a nerd date
Yeah.
with your wife.
Yeah.
I love that. I can also tell how curious you both are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how there's, if I'm understanding correctly, like so much learning
Yeah.
between the two of you, learning from each other and also teaching.
Yeah. I think
Beautiful.
I mentioned there's very little overlap in our professions,
Yeah.
but then there's the big overlap is we have to ask questions, right? So for her, as a journalist or a documentarian,
right.
before she puts
Yeah.
resources into doing a documentary, it's like, is this thing like a legit thing?
Yeah.
Right? How do I figure out if it's like a legit thing? Let me question the folks, right? And the same thing as an investor, before we put resources into anything, is this company a legit company? Let's ask questions to figure it out. So it's like trying to like we have that ability to ask each other questions to drill down to figure out, okay, should we invest time, resources, and money into anything?
That's your shared interest.
Yeah.
And I feel like your love language is like teaching each other new things
Yep.
and like learning new things together.
Yeah.
Wow.
Not to psychoanalyze you, but your love language might be that.
Oh, yeah, I don't know, but
I've never heard it put that way, but I like it.
That is so interesting.
Well, something that I've been thinking about recently, so we talk about money,
Mhm.
power, and love
Mhm.
on our podcast because they're also interrelated. You have the career stuff that you do, professional
Mhm.
stuff. You know, you also have a partner that's such a big part of your life. When I think about the partner that I'm looking for, it's someone who's also very curious about life, has a growth mindset, so we can learn from one another.
Mhm.
Yeah. Because your partner, I guess, can be your lifelong learning partner
Yeah.
too. And that's kind of what you guys have created for each other.
Yeah. Think about it. When the zombie apocalypse happens and you're the only two people left, you don't want to be bored with that person.
Yeah.
So
It's
it's
true.
Wow. New standard. New standard has been created. The zombie apocalypse standard.
Yes.
Okay, so Kofi, we've talked a lot about startups.
Mhm.
You founded your startups, you advise startups, You also seem to kind of run your own life like a startup in certain ways. So tell us about the system you created where you track like good days, bad days, and how do we implement it?
Yeah. So I came up with this in late 2019 and actually started doing it in 2020. So 2019, when the year ended, I was just like, was this year a successful year? Like oftentimes I think everyone does like a New Year's resolution, right? And it's this year I want to accomplish X, Y, and Z. And if you don't accomplish X, Y, and Z, at the end of the year, you just assume maybe the year was a failure. And I felt like I didn't feel like a failure, but I felt like I failed. And I wanted a better way of tracking if I failed or not. And oftentimes our resolutions are tied to like professional achievements, right? But that's just one part, I feel like, of your life. And this was a very fortuitous time because I started it before the pandemic. I said every single day I'm going to measure my days to figure out if I won the day. And I measure them on three things. Physical, did I work out? Did I eat well? Right? So physical health. And then mental health is, am I stressed? Did I go to bed happy? And then the last thing I measured was like my daily task. And every day I had three things I wanted to complete, right? At the end of each day, I would measure it. And then at the end of each week, I was publicly tracking it on the platform formerly known as Twitter. And I would put, week one, I won 6 days out of 7. And I was also putting it on a spreadsheet and I would have like little notes next to it. And just to remind me of like, if there was like if I had a really bad week, kind of summarizing why I had a bad week. And what I realized was I was really winning each year. And I think for most people, if they take that approach, you're drilling down on a on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
So if you are measuring each day, you realize, man, I'm losing each day. You're going to take action to figure out, okay, what can I change? Right. And I think I used to be a management consultant. So what doesn't get tracked, doesn't get measured, doesn't get tracked. Right. So if it's like you're going through the week and you at the end of the week, you're like, man, I had a bad week. And then I'm like, what made it a bad week? Right. And you can't really pinpoint it. That's a problem because how can you then change it for the future? And so for the last 5 years now, just been tracking that and it's been super, super helpful. And I also do like the year over year.
Yeah.
And because I want to make sure I'm progressing, I'm up and to the right, I'm a VC. We need growth, right?
Yeah.
I aggressively like looking at the numbers on the spreadsheet and I'm like, okay, I need to be better. Like if I'm not eating well, I need to eat better. I need to make sure that I actually put better daily tasks that I can complete, right? Because part of it too was just like, if you think about trying to accomplish things for the day, I think we're always more ambitious than our abilities are, right? So you make this big ass to-do list and you realized, I can't really complete any of this stuff. So what I actually do is just like, what are the three things, and this is typically work related, what are the three things that matter for me for work today? And making sure I get that done. I typically get more than 3 things done, but at least after I cross the 3 off, I know I've had a good day.
I'm so curious. I have so many questions. Oh my God. I mean, the PM in me is going crazy right now. But I'm like, okay, were there any like seasonal trends that you noticed?
So part of the trend that I noticed was just like obviously with like COVID and everything that was happening with like BLM.
Yeah.
There was like, it's like my mental state was just like mush, right? I would like the physical. It's also for me. It's a bit of a cheat code because I naturally have been working out every day for a very, very long time. So it's habit forming. It's part of my day, my routine. I actually plan things around working out just because that is my self-care. But it's everything that was happening from a macro. Sometimes it was just like really tough for me to deal with, right? And obviously I have a partner, and how she deals with it also impacts my mental aspect. And so that would impact it. And then that's when I started asking myself things like, what can I do? Right. So instead of me being stressed out, what can I do about it? So I do remember during the BLM protests, I reached out to TechCrunch and I wrote an article. And the article that I did for TechCrunch was I actually looked at, and this is just me being a nerd again, right? I looked at a bunch of like prominent startup podcasts and looked at the guests that people have on those podcasts. And I realized like Black like people were underrepresented as guests, right? So I wrote a blog post called Black Minds Matter. And the goal of that blog post was to say, because I think around that time, everyone was trying to figure out, okay, what can we do to make sure that America is a more equitable place, right? So for me, my recommendation was I think there are Black people that can probably talk about product. There are Black people that can talk about engineering, that can talk about investing, right? Let's figure out how to get them as guests on some of these prominent podcasts, because I think it also changes the perception of like a whole race, right? So that was like around that time, that was my, instead of me being stressed out about it, what can my solve be?
I think that is so cool because that is literally the exact example of you using your bully pulpit and you finding like a very specific thing that you could do that was in your control, that was specific to your area of expertise to make a difference and then also influence other people. And then also I think it's really cool because it's a way where you took all the learnings, all the metrics, et cetera, and then you're like, okay, how do I come up with like some sort of conclusion or like learning from everything that I've been tracking? Because, you know, I can't control the outside world, but the outside world is affecting me. So then what can I do to like flip it around, to like make a change in this situation? And then you actually did something about it. That's so cool. That's like the ideal use of data.
Yeah. And I also,
I'm a nerd too. Come on.
and I think it's also I think it's also important to mention I'm under no like delusion that you're gonna have 100% like happy days, right? Where that would be kind of weird, right? Then you wouldn't know what happiness is if you've never experienced like a low point. And so I think it's also important to make space. One of the things that I'm trying to be better at, and this is trying to make space for, I just heard this phrase recently, make space for your failures, right? So it's just like, okay, like it's okay to like wallow in like you had a goal, you missed a goal. It's okay to be sad about it, right? For some time. I'm not saying just never be sad about anything, right? And having that practice of, okay, this thing didn't go the way I wanted it to go. I'm bummed out about it. I'm going to be bummed about it for like a day, right? One of the things that I'm trying to be better at is time block being bummed out about something that didn't go well, right? So it's just like, okay, I'm going to be upset about it for like a day. And then after that day, trying to figure out like, how do we move forward, right? Because it's so easy to spiral. And I think it's so easy to spiral and make like excuses are the cheapest things to buy, right? Like it's so easy to make an excuse. So it's like, how can I figure out like, okay, I'm bummed out. This thing didn't work out. Give myself like the day to just sit on the couch, watch Netflix, like eat like unhealthy food, right? Like, and just bum out about it. But then the next day, let me move forward. Because I think oftentimes, unless it's like extreme circumstances, you probably are just in the same spot you were in before that thing didn't work out, right? Some circumstances, like if you lose a job, you're set back, right? And then if it's not like a job loss, you're probably not set back. You're just probably in the same spot. So it's like, okay, how do I just pick up from where I'm at to reconfigure and move forward?
I definitely want to adopt this framework or this model and try it out for myself. But something I feel like I need to be careful with, my mindset, I'm really, I don't like failure. No one likes failure. But then I feel like, just this is me being honest, I was just like, I want to be completely honest when I'm measuring my days. And so that I'm not like, was I happy? And, kind of like stretch it a little bit so that I can meet the metric. Do you know what I mean? It's like you have to be super honest with yourself when you're doing this, or else it can feel like you're failing over and over.
I want to challenge that a little bit,
Sure.
the failure piece. So I think failure is actually like healthy.
Yeah.
So if you are approaching a situation with the intention of you're not going to fail, right? Is you're probably going to move a lot slower, right? That is why literally large companies don't do anything worthwhile, right? Like really, really large, like incumbent companies.
Yep.
It's because it's like, nah, what if we try this thing and it fails, right? And if you ever watch like kids like learning how to play basketball or doing anything, it's oftentimes the person teaching them is just like, you got to go faster. If you're not failing, you're not trying hard enough, right? If you're very, very careful, because I think as adults, we get into this mindset of we have to be perfect before we do anything.
Yeah.
Right. And then if perfection is always the aim, you're more than likely not going to try new things, because as soon as you try a new thing, you're going to be like, I'm failing at this. And I'm going through that right now. I'm learning French and reading a book by Adam Grant. And one of the things he mentioned was the people who are really good at learning a language are people who the first day they learn a language, they start using it.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like,
Ah oui?
oui. So it's like you start using it right away. And part of like using a language is you're going to embarrass yourself.
Yeah.
You're going to fail.
Yeah.
Right. But it's like
Like that.
and I know I'm literally going through this right now, where it's just like, I'm always like trying to pick the perfect spot to try it. And if you keep picking a perfect spot, you're never going to get the perfect spot.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, I do think it's like part of the process of achieving like success is like, you just got to move fast. Just don't break things.
Yeah.
And then
Sounds like you need to plan some trips to these francophone countries.
it's on a list.
It's funny.
We have like a fun high energy segment
Okay.
Yes.
that we're gonna try.
It's all right.
Which we haven't tried before.
Yeah.
It's
So I'm really the guinea pig today.
Thank you.
We're not afraid to fail.
Yeah.
Is really
Ooh, she's throwing it back at me.
You like that?
Yeah.
full circle.
I'm fast with it. The next segment is called True or False. And basically what we're gonna do is we're gonna read you some hot takes from the startup world, and then you tell us, in your opinion, if it's true or false and why.
Yeah.
And they're gonna be like fun, silly, like spicy,
Okay.
So feel free to be fun, silly, and spicy.
Was I not already fun, silly, and spicy?
Even more. So the first one, Kofi, true or false? If you are not working 90 hours a week, then you don't want it bad enough as a founder.
False. You're going to work hard. And part of, I think, working hard doesn't necessarily mean you need to work long hours, right? There are going to be times where you're working maybe 90-hour weeks, but I don't think it needs to constantly be 90-hour weeks. There are ways. I actually also think it's important to take breaks here and there, right? It's we just got back from like a founders retreat, and one of the things that we tell our founders on a founder retreat is building a company is a marathon, right? And that doesn't mean it's a marathon so you go slow. The people who win marathons are still running at a pretty fast pace, right? So there are going to be some miles where you're running at a 5-minute pace. There are going to be some miles where you just happen to be running at a 7-minute pace, right? Because you're not always going to, there are going to be some weeks you don't always have it, right? But I don't think like there's a consistency of working like 90-hour weeks. You're going to need to work hard. And that's something that you just need to get your mind ready for.
Love that. Okay, Kofi, there are 2 co-founders that are either dating or married. Is that a huge red flag?
Man. So it's not, it's a red flag. I wouldn't say huge, right? It
Beige
is,
flag?
There's a risk, right? I think as an investor, when you're investing, you invest in risk, right? And you just need to know what the risk is, right? I don't think any investor invests in anything thinking it's a risk-free thing, right? Like You invest in something, trying to figure out what the risk is. And I think when it comes to married co-founders, it's okay, something can happen personally, and then they break up, and then what happens to the company, right? So it's all it means is you're just gonna have to ask them a lot of awkward questions before making an investment. So it is a flag, and we need to like drill down on that flag.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
You're like, what can I do about it? How do I de-risk this? How do I de-risk your relationship? Okay. Kofi, true or false, Y Combinator is overrated and low-key a scam?
I would say false. I say this because I feel like Y Combinator truly has like product market fit, right? I say this joke where it's if Y Combinator decided probably today that, hey, we'll take 5% of your company and we won't give you any money, people will still apply, right? Because I think one of the things that you can never discredit them for is the network that they've built, right? At the end of the day, if you are building a SaaS product and you join Y Combinator, there's a potential that all the successful Y Combinator companies can be your customer. So even if it's just for to build traction with customers, right? To just get people to use your product to give you feedback, I think there's value in it.
Yeah. That's a real nerdy joke, by the way, Kofi.
Pun intended. Okay. Kofi, true or false? Ivy League degrees are useless in startups.
True. And I think the reason is, and this is the reason we have TXO, we think anybody can build a company. It's not, I don't think you don't have a right to build a company or a right to raise money just because you have a degree from a specific college, right? What that college does is it probably signals that you may be a high intelligent person, which is great, right? But not everyone who is smart went to an Ivy League school. Not everyone who's capable or has talent went to an Ivy League school. So I don't think it's a prerequisite for being a founder.
Kofi, true or false? If you don't know how to code, don't start a tech company.
False. I think, especially now, there are all these AI tools that you can use. I would say if you don't know how to code, what's the thing that you know how to do that makes you valuable to whatever thing that you're trying to build, right? Like you don't want to be that person that has an idea and then you either you get a co-founder or an early engineer, and that engineer is the only valuable thing in your company, right? So I think if you don't know how to code, like what else are you doing to make your company like super valuable? Do you know how to sell, right? Do you know how to market? Do you know how to, do you just know how to hire people? Are you a people person and you can be able to hire like the best talent to come onto your team? But I don't think it's the only thing you need to know how to do to be able to start a company.
Okay, Kofi, true or false? Raising money is easier if you're a white guy in a hoodie.
I would say true. And that's it's just based on the data, right? But I think even white guys in hoodies probably have a hard time raising money, right? I think raising money is hard for anyone because you're like asking people for money is not easy. So I think it's true, but it's probably hard for them too. Or at least if you ask them, they think it's hard.
Wow. Radical empathy.
Yeah. I've never been a white guy in a hoodie, so I can't speak from firsthand experience.
Kofi, true or false? Building in public is just performative BS.
I'd say false. There's an advantage to building in public. You can get customer discovery. You can get real-time feedback. And then you can also just signal to people around how fast you can move, right? I think oftentimes investors may be interested in investing in someone that can move really fast, right? So if each time you post about something you're doing, I'm like, man, this person was just at B. Now they're already at F, right? Soon they're going to be at Z. So it's a moving train, and I want to get onto that moving train.
Phew. Thank God you said that answer, because that's what we're doing.
We build in public.
Unless you're making a matcha company. Build behind closed doors. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, so he did get spicy. He got a little spicy. Okay. I think this is the last one. Kofi, true or false? Most pitch decks are just really well-designed lies.
False. And the reason I'm saying false is if you're starting off a relationship, which an investor-founder relationship, an investor-founder connection is a relationship. If the first thing you're telling me, which is sending me your pitch deck, and if it's a lie, that's not a good start to a relationship. So I do think founders put a lot of care into, or I would hope founders put a lot of care into like what they're putting into their decks, right? And then if it's a lie, most of the times we're going to figure out during the diligence process that that logo you have on there is not actually a customer. So,
I just want to say, Kofi, thank you for bringing your whole self today and for being so honest, sharing with us your life philosophy, your life framework, your life systems. It's just it means so much to me, to us, and also I know you said a lot of things today that will be deeply meaningful to our listeners. So thank you.
no, thanks for having
Thank
me.
you.
This was
Yeah.
fun.
This is amazing.
Yeah.
I think it was really powerful too. I think reflecting on a lot of your personal answers and how it relates to your personal life and also to the career aspect, I really will take a lot away from the frameworks that you've talked about and the fact that like you've been in the trenches yourself, building your own startup, and now with TXO, you're helping people navigate through the trenches is really, really powerful. So thank
Yeah.
you.
No, thank you.
And so speaking of which, where can people follow you and where can people learn more about what you're doing and TXO?
Yep. You can follow me on X at the Kofi Ampadu on X, and then you can follow TXO on X and Instagram at a16z TXO.
Great. And we'll have all of those linked in the descriptions of this video.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Kofi.
No, thanks for having me.
Yeah. And to our listeners, if anything that Kofi said made you pause or reflect or think deeply or yell at your phone, then please like, comment, and subscribe. Rate us 5 stars on Spotify and on Apple Podcasts. And
Okay.
share with a friend.
All right. Thanks.
Thanks,
Bye.
bye.